Sweet, a new patch just came out. Let's take a look at some of these patch notes. Alright, alright.
No! God, please, no! 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 No!
A few moments later.
Hey guys, it's Measy again, and with a severe nerfing of Firewall, I thought I needed to look for a different Sorceress spec that could also still do what I would traditionally use my Sorceress for, which is mainly clearing the Chaos Sanctuary and some other zones. And besides, I always wanted to try a cold lightning hybrid, especially with the nerfing of Firewall, but also because the Chaos Sanctuary is actually quite light on lightning immunes. And so my rationale for picking this build specifically is to again clear the Chaos Sanctuary efficiently while still being able to do the Worldstone Keep and Baal, as well as the Ancient Tunnels, all of which are areas that I really enjoy. And so what this really means is, in my opinion, your spec should mostly depend on what you enjoy playing the most, right? And so in terms of the Sorceress, there are still a lot of different viable builds you can go with, including budget ones like the Blizzard Sorceress, a Frozen Orb hybrid of a different kind like the Meteor Sorceress can still be pretty good. So again, in my case, because the Chaos Sanctuary has, first of all, a lot of fire immunes, which makes Firewall or any other fire spell for that matter not that effective, and in fact, while I was still a Firewall or Orb Wall or Sorceress, I would only pretty much use Firewall on Diablo himself as well as the casters in the back, which I could still like Telestomp, and Firewall was just a bit clunky because it sort of interfered with Frozen Orb because they shared the same cooldown. Not to mention, the monsters that actually are lightning immunes in the Chaos Sanctuary are complete pushovers because not only do they do like virtually no damage, but my Frozen Orbs can usually kill them extremely easily. And thus this has led me down the path of going for a Frozen Orb and Chain Lightning / Lightning hybrid Sorceress. And another thing I really like about this build is that Chain Lightning or Lightning pretty much becomes a straight up DPS increase because it can be cast between Frozen Orb cooldowns similar to Fireball. And with enough faster cast rate, you'll be able to cast about 2 to 3 lightnings or chain lightnings between each Frozen Orb, resulting in a very significant damage boost to non-immunes at least. And speaking of immunes, another thing I noticed while running the Chaos Sanctuary repeatedly, again back when I had my Orb Waller Sorceress, is that there doesn't seem to be as many or nearly as many lightning and cold immune monsters, whereas I encountered quite a few fire and cold immune monsters, which made it so that I had to rely on my mercenary for those. But if I go lightning and cold, there isn't as many dual immunes that I'll have to deal with. And so I really think this build works well for the Chaos Sanctuary, but if you like to farm some other places, if that's your preference, like if you want to just do Ancient Tunnels or like Mephisto, you might want to go for a Blizzard Sorceress or some kind of cold fire hybrid. And now, without further ado, let's now get into how I've set up my own personal version of the Lightning Orb Sorceress. First, looking at the cold tree, you'll see that I've maxed out Frozen Orb, as well as its synergy Ice Bolt, although this is definitely up to your personal preference. I actually really like Frozen Orb, first of all, it's probably my favorite skill, and I also got very lucky. I found a near perfect 30% cold damage Death's Fathom, so I wanted to boost my cold damage as much as I could. And as for Cold Mastery, I currently only have 6 hard points into it, because after doing a bit of research as well as planning out the additional skill points I will be getting through a Sorcerer's Torch, which I have yet to get, as well as some cold skillers, 6 points seems to be enough for me. Essentially, there are actually a lot of monsters, a large percentage of monsters rather, that only have 0 cold resist, so for those monsters, a negative 100 cold mastery would suffice. And then for some of the monsters with a bit of resistances, I'll just rely on additional skillers to help me boost my mastery past that 100% mark. And next, looking at the lightning tree, and again, you can definitely put the points that I have in Ice Bolt and instead distribute them into Lightning Mastery and any other synergies like Charge Bolt for both Chain Lightning and Lightning. For my situation specifically, I decided to go more heavily into Frozen Orb, again because I found that near perfect Death's Fathom, right? But you can definitely balance it out more, put more points into the Lightning Tree, because especially since Ice Bolt actually doesn't increase Frozen Orb's damage by that much, and you perhaps would actually get a higher DPS increase by investing more of those points into Lightning instead. And in terms of how I've approached the Lightning Tree, I've actually first maxed out Chain Lightning followed by Lightning, and then put the remaining points into Lightning Mastery. And this is because both Lightning and Chain Lightning can be useful, and if you actually forsake one or the other in favor of Lightning Mastery, that could actually make one of them, the one that you're putting fewer points into, have significantly lower damage. In terms of which one I cast more though, Chain Lightning is in my opinion a lot more useful because it has the ability to sort of auto-target and bounce between enemies, and also including the same enemies, as in you can actually bounce back to the same monsters. But if you want to do single target damage to say a boss or a certain elite you're trying to single out, you would just switch to Lightning and just focus fire him instead. By the way, really quick before we move on, I also want to mention that this specific D2 planner page and profiles are actually linked right below in the description box, and this includes 2 different setups of the Orb Chain Lightning build. In terms of gear setups, I have one that replicates my own gear setup more closely with the Death's Fathom and like the Skin of the Viper Magi and the Shaco. I'll go over my gear more specifically later on, but there's also a hypothetical Talrasha build which can be a lot more budget friendly and also very powerful, and potentially even packing more magic find than the build I'm currently running. And with that, let's now get back to what I'm currently running for my gear and why. And first of all, I do have this Death's Fathom. I keep mentioning it because I'm so proud of it. I actually got it from the River of Flame. Very, very lucky indeed. But before that, I was using a Heart of the Oak, and that can definitely be a very powerful and viable option as well, especially since it has 40% faster cast rate, which makes it much easier for you to hit that 117% faster cast rate specific to Lightning and Chain Lightning. In addition to that, another really helpful piece for hitting the faster cast rate breakpoints is the Skin of the Viper Magi, which I am also running. Next, the rest of the gear is pretty standard, from the Shaco to a Talrasha's Amulet, although I could definitely replace it with like a Mara's Kaleidoscope. And then I also have a Spirit Monarch, a War Traveler, far from perfect War Travelers, and then double Nagel Rings, a Gold Wrap, which I'm actually looking to potentially replace with Arachnid Mesh to get me that faster cast rate breakpoint for Lightning and Chain Lightning. And then I'm also running Mage Fist. And for my switch, I'm simply running a Blade of Alibaba coupled with a Rhyme Shield for some extra magic find when I kill Diablo. But I'm actually looking to make a CTA. I actually have enough runes to do so. I just need to get an Emerald to cube my 2 Vexes into an Ohm to be able to get that extra survivability and an extra skill point at that. And speaking of extra skill points, I do have that one point wonder in Warmth, but I don't have any points in Static Field or Frozen Armor, although you could do that if you wanted to. Again, this is all sort of personal preference. And finally, for my buddy Emilio's gear, again, this is nothing too special. It's just a Talrasha's Helm for some Life Leech and Resist, although I would much prefer having an Andario's Visage. And then I have a Duriel's Shell with Cannot Be Frozen, which is very nice. And then finally an Insight and an Ethereal Thresher for some massive, DPS, as well as the Meditation Aura, which will increase my mana regen, which will be all the more important as I spam some of my lightning skills. And that is pretty much all I want to cover in today's video. And again, even though this build is very much tailored to my own playstyle and preferences, I still think that it has a lot of space to be a legitimately viable build for multiple zones in the game. Plus, I think it can be pretty viable even with a lower budget as well. Not to mention, visually speaking, being able to cast Frozen Orb and Lightning spells is just super cool in my opinion. And with that, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, and I will try to answer your comment, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.